At last year's Christmas, my family mocked me over dinner, laughing. You'll never make real money doing that. Yesterday, I cashed out my first $1.8 million deal, and suddenly every one of them is calling me, claiming they deserve a share. They have no idea how I'm about to respond. I, 32M, sat in my apartment yesterday staring at my bank account, watching the numbers refresh on the screen. $1,847,392.18. The wire transfer had cleared 30 minutes ago, and I checked it 17 times already. My hands were shaking. Not from excitement, though that was there. They were shaking because I kept thinking about last Christmas. I'm a software developer, or at least that's what I told people to keep things simple. The reality was more complicated. For the past 4 years, I'd been building a specialized AI tool for supply chain optimization in my spare time. Nights, weekends, every free moment I had went into this project. My day job paid the bills, barely, but this side project was my shot at something bigger. My family never understood it. They never tried to understand it. Last Christmas, I'd driven 8 hours to my parents' house for dinner. The whole extended family was there. My older brother, the real estate agent who never stopped talking about his commissions. My younger sister, married to a corporate lawyer. My uncle who owned a small chain of car washes. My aunt who'd invested in some franchises. They all had what they considered real success, tangible businesses they could point to and explain in one sentence. I'd made the mistake of being honest when my father asked how work was going. I told them about my project, about the beta testing I was doing with a few small companies, about the potential I saw in the market. I even mentioned I'd been approached by a venture capital firm that showed interest. The laughter started with my brother. He asked if I was still playing with my computer games, making actual air quotes with his fingers. My uncle chimed in, saying he didn't understand why I was wasting my time on something that wasn't generating income. My sister wanted to know when I'd get a real career, something stable. Her husband, 3 glasses of wine deep, launched into a condescending explanation of how real business worked, how you needed capital and connections, not just ideas typed into a laptop in a studio apartment. My mother had patted my hand and suggested I talk to my brother about getting into real estate. Something reliable, she said. My father just shook his head and went quiet, which somehow felt worse than the mockery. The worst moment came when my aunt asked how much I'd made from my little project so far. I'd told her the truth. After expenses, I was operating at a loss, reinvesting everything into development. The entire table had erupted. My brother laughed so hard he choked on his food. My uncle declared that this was exactly why kids these days never got anywhere, chasing pipe dreams instead of doing honest work. My sister said I was too old to be acting like a college kid with a startup fantasy. They told me I'd never make real money doing that. They actually said those exact words, never make real money, and they were all laughing. Not gentle ribbing between family. Real, genuine laughter at my expense. Like I was the punchline to a joke they'd all been waiting to tell. I'd left early, claimed I had a headache. Drove 4 hours in the dark before I stopped at a motel because I couldn't see the road anymore through my anger. I didn't cry. I just sat there, furious, humiliated, replaying every laugh and every condescending comment. I remembered thinking that I'd show them. Someday, somehow, I'd make them eat every word. I didn't speak to any of them for 3 months after that. Then February came, and everything started moving fast. The venture capital firm that had shown interest came back with a serious offer. They wanted to acquire my tool outright, integrate it into their existing platform. The number they threw out was beyond anything I'd imagined. We negotiated for weeks. They increased their offer twice. By April, we had a deal structured, $1.8 million upfront, plus royalties based on integration success, and a consulting contract for 2 years at $15,000 monthly. I didn't tell anyone. Not my parents, not my siblings, nobody. I went through due diligence, legal reviews, technical audits, all of it in complete silence. My family thought I was still broke, still wasting my time. I'd send obligatory texts for birthdays and holidays, keeping things surface level. They never asked about my work again, probably assumed it had failed like they predicted. The deal closed yesterday morning. By afternoon, the money was in my account. By evening, my phone started ringing. It started with my brother. He'd heard from someone. He wouldn't say who, that I'd sold something, some tech thing, and wanted to know if the rumors were true. I confirmed I'd closed the deal. He congratulated me, way too enthusiastically. then casually mentioned he was looking at an investment property and could really use a cash partner. 50,000 would get me in on the ground floor of something big, he said. Family discount, he said. My sister called an hour later. She'd apparently talked to our brother. She wanted to meet for coffee, catch up, discuss some exciting opportunities. She mentioned she and her husband were looking at a vacation home and that I should consider investing with them. It would be a great family asset, she said. Something we could all enjoy. Her tone was sweet, conciliatory, completely different from the dismissive attitude she'd had every time we'd interacted over the past year. My uncle sent a text. He was expanding his business and needed an investor. This was a sure thing, proven model, he wrote. Much better than those risky tech gambles. He'd cut me in for 20% equity for just $100,000. Family rate, he emphasized. My aunt called. She wanted to discuss a franchise opportunity she'd been eyeing. With my windfall, we could be partners. She'd run the operations, I'd provide the capital. 50-50 split, she proposed, like she was doing me a favor. My mother called sobbing. She said she'd heard I'd come into some money and wanted to make sure I was being smart about it. She worried about people taking advantage of me. Then she mentioned that she and my father were struggling with some debt, nothing serious, but maybe I could help them consolidate things. Maybe 50,000, just a loan, family helping family. My father sent an email. Formal, bullet-pointed. He outlined several investment opportunities he'd researched and wanted to discuss. He ended by saying he was proud of me and hoped we could work together on building real wealth. The same man who'd shaken his head in disappointment 12 months ago was now offering to advise me on wealth management. Every single one of them called, texted, or emailed within 8 hours of the money hitting my account. Every single one had their hand out. Not one of them apologized for last Christmas. Not one acknowledged how they'd treated me. They all acted like we were close, like they'd always supported me, like they deserved a piece of what I'd built alone. The word they kept using was deserve. My brother said family deserves to benefit from each other's success. My sister mentioned I deserve to have family involved in my investments. My uncle stated flatly that family deserves a share when one of them makes it big. The entitlement was breathtaking. I didn't commit to anything. I told each of them I needed time to think, that I was still processing everything, that I'd get back to them. They were all understanding, supportive even, but I could hear the anticipation in their voices. They were already spending my money in their heads. I spent last night thinking, not about whether to give them anything. That decision was already made. I spent the night thinking about how to do this right, how to make them understand exactly what they'd done and exactly what it cost them. This morning, I started making calls. I hired a lawyer, showed him the recordings I'd made on my phone last Christmas. Yes, I'd recorded dinner. I'd been so hurt and angry that I'd pulled out my phone under the table and captured 20 minutes of their mockery. My lawyer said it wasn't admissible for anything legal, but it was useful context. I had him draft a series of letters. Then I called a financial advisor and set up trusts. Not for my family, for organizations that actually mattered to me. Coding boot camps for underprivileged kids. Scholarships for first-generation college students studying computer science. A grant program for solo founders building tech without institutional support. The causes I actually cared about, the people who reminded me of myself 4 years ago. I scheduled a family dinner for this weekend. I told everyone I wanted to discuss my plans and hear their proposals properly. They all agreed immediately. My mother actually cried with happiness on the phone, saying she was so glad I was bringing the family together. The irony was suffocating. I'm not going to yell at them. I'm not going to play the recordings, though I've thought about it. I'm going to sit down, let them all pitch their ideas, let them talk about what they deserve and how family should support family. I'm going to nod and take notes like I'm seriously considering everything. And then I'm going to tell them about last Christmas. I'm going to describe, in detail, what it felt like to be laughed at by the people who were supposed to believe in me. I'm going to explain how their mockery motivated me more than their support ever could have. I'm going to thank them, actually thank them, for showing me exactly who they were when they thought I had nothing to offer them. Then I'm going to tell them about the trusts. Every dollar I'm donating, every scholarship I'm funding, every grant I'm establishing. I'm going to explain that I've allocated $400,000 to charitable causes, that I've set aside money for my own future, and that I'm investing the rest in my next project. Solo, no partners, no family involvement. I'm going to tell them they deserve exactly what they gave me when I was struggling, nothing but criticism and doubt. My brother asked yesterday if I remembered last Christmas. He laughed, called it a tough crowd, like it was some comedy show instead of a humiliation. He didn't apologize. He just wanted to make sure I wasn't still sensitive about it before he asked for money. That told me everything I needed to know. The truth is, I'm not even doing this for revenge, not really. I'm doing it because they need to understand that family isn't about showing up when someone succeeds. It's about believing in them before success is guaranteed. It's about support that isn't conditional on profit. They didn't offer that, so they don't get to claim it now. I keep thinking about what my uncle said last Christmas. He told me I'd never make real money with my head in the clouds. He was wrong, obviously, but the deeper mistake was thinking real money was all that mattered. I made something I'm proud of. I solved a real problem. I did it without their help, without their belief, without their support. The money is great, life-changing even, but the satisfaction of proving them wrong is better. The dinner is in 3 days. I've rehearsed what I'm going to say. My lawyer reviewed it to make sure I'm not opening myself up to any legal issues. Not that I think they'd sue, but better safe than sorry. My financial advisor confirmed all my charitable allocations are properly structured. Everything is in place. I know some people will think I'm being cruel. That family is family, and I should forgive them. That I should be bigger than this. But here's what those people don't understand. This isn't about withholding money. This is about drawing a boundary. This is about saying that you don't get to tear someone down and then expect to build your future on their success. If they'd apologized, if even one of them had acknowledged what happened last Christmas before asking for money, maybe I'd feel differently. But they didn't. They pretended it never happened. They showed up with their hands out and their memories conveniently blank, expecting me to forget how they made me feel. I'm not forgetting. I'm making sure they don't forget either. Update 1. The dinner happened yesterday. I'm still processing everything, but people have been asking for an update, so here it is. I got to my parents' house early and helped set up. My mother was almost manic with excitement, kept talking about how wonderful it was to have the family together again, how proud she was, how much she'd missed this. My father shook my hand firmly, like we were business associates, and mentioned he'd prepared some spreadsheets to show me. The irony of him putting effort into spreadsheets for my money when he couldn't be bothered to understand my work was not lost on me. Everyone arrived within 15 minutes of each other. My brother brought a bottle of expensive scotch, which he made a big show of presenting. My sister and her husband brought flowers for our mother and a portfolio folder, which I knew contained their vacation home proposal. My aunt and uncle arrived with a gift basket and what looked like a business plan in a leather binder. Dinner was awkward. Everyone was being aggressively nice to me, complimenting everything, asking about my plans in a way that felt more like reconnaissance than genuine interest. My brother kept steering conversation toward real estate markets. My sister's husband dominated discussion about investment diversification. My uncle talked about the stability of brick-and-mortar businesses. All of it was positioning, setting up their pitches. After dinner, we moved to the living room. My father suggested we get down to business. That's the exact phrase he used, get down to business. Like this was a board meeting and not a family gathering. I let them go first. One by one, they presented their proposals. My brother went first with his investment property. He had photos, projected returns, a whole pitch about getting in on the ground floor. He kept emphasizing family partnership, how we build something together. He needed $50,000, but strongly suggested I could go in for more if I wanted a larger stake. He never once mentioned last Christmas. My sister and her husband presented their vacation home idea. They'd found a place in the mountains, for bedrooms, perfect for family gatherings. They needed me to cover 60% of the purchase price, around $180,000, but I'd own 30%. They'd manage it, rent it out, and we'd all share the profits. My sister actually teared up talking about future family memories we'd make there. I wondered if those memories would include laughing at each other's failures. My uncle's car wash expansion was next. He wanted $100,000 for a new location. He'd make me a junior partner, 20% equity. He spent a lot of time talking about proven business models and safe investments, clearly taking a shot at my tech background without saying it directly. He finished by saying this was a chance for me to learn how real business worked. I almost laughed. My aunt's franchise opportunity required $75,000. She had literature, financial projections, the works. She talked about how we'd be partners, how she'd been thinking about this for years, and my success made it possible. She kept calling it destiny, like the universe had arranged my deal specifically to fund her dream. My parents went last. My father had indeed prepared spreadsheets. They had $68,000 in combined debt, mostly credit cards and a home equity loan. He proposed I pay it off as a family investment, keeping them financially stable so they could help me with future decisions. My mother cried again, talking about how hard things had been, how worried she'd been. Neither mentioned that they'd never told me they were struggling. Neither acknowledged that I'd been struggling too when they dismissed my work. The total they were asking for was over $533,000, more than $500,000, from someone they'd mocked and dismissed a year ago. When they finished, there was this expectant silence. They were all looking at me, waiting. My mother had this hopeful smile. My father had his businessman face on. My siblings looked confident. They actually thought this was going to work. I thanked them for their presentations. I said I'd given a lot of thought to how to handle my windfall, and I'd made some decisions I wanted to share with them. Then I started talking about last Christmas. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't get emotional. I just described what happened, moment by moment. The laughter, the mockery, the dismissal. I quoted some of their comments back to them word for word. You'd think I was making it up from how their faces changed. My brother went pale. My sister looked at her lap. My uncle actually tried to interrupt me, but I kept going. I told them I'd spent the year thinking about that dinner. How it motivated me, yes, but also how it clarified things for me. It showed me who believed in me when belief was all I needed, and who only showed up when there was profit involved. My mother tried to say something about how families tease each other, how they didn't mean anything by it. I asked her point blank, if my project had failed, would they be here today? Would we be having this dinner? The silence was answer enough. Then I told them about the trusts and donations. I walked through each one. The coding bootcamp fund, the scholarships, the grants. I explained that I'd allocated $400,000 to causes that supported people like me, people trying to build something without resources or support or family backing. My father asked what was left for family investments. I told him, nothing. I'd allocated money for my own future, for my next projects, and for causes I believed in. There was nothing left for them because they'd never invested in me when it mattered. The room exploded. My brother called me selfish and ungrateful. My sister said I was being petty and childish. My uncle stood up and started yelling about family loyalty. My aunt accused me of being cruel. My mother was crying, saying she didn't understand how I could do this to them. My father just sat there, and I saw something in his face I'd never seen before. Shame, maybe, or recognition. He didn't yell. He didn't defend himself. He just looked old and tired. I told them I wasn't doing this to be cruel. I was doing this to be clear. They didn't believe in my work. They believed in my money. Those are very different things. If they'd apologized, if they'd acknowledged what happened, if they'd shown any awareness of how they'd treated me, we might be having a different conversation. But they didn't. They showed up with their hands out and their memories erased, expecting me to forget because it was convenient for them. My brother said he did remember, said he was sorry if I took it the wrong way. Sorry if I took it the wrong way. Not sorry for what he said, but sorry that I was too sensitive to handle it. That was when I knew I'd made the right decision. I stood up to leave. My mother grabbed my arm, begging me to stay, to reconsider, saying family was more important than money. I asked her where that sentiment was last Christmas when they were laughing at my family member for being broke. She didn't have an answer. As I reached the door, my father finally spoke. He asked if there was anything he could do to fix this. I told him the truth. I didn't know. Maybe time would help. Maybe it wouldn't. But right now, the only thing that felt right was drawing a line between who they'd been when I had nothing and who they were trying to be now that I had something. I left. My phone started blowing up before I even got to my car. Texts from everyone, ranging from apologetic to furious. My brother sent a long message about how I was destroying the family over money. My sister said I'd regret this when I needed them someday. My uncle called me an entitled, arrogant child. My aunt said she was disappointed in who I'd become. My mother's texts were just heartbreaking. She kept saying she loved me, that she was sorry, that she didn't understand what she'd done wrong. That one hurt because I think she genuinely didn't understand. She didn't see how their treatment had affected me. She thought it was just teasing, just family dynamics, nothing worth holding on to. But here's what they don't get. It wasn't just one dinner. It was a culmination of years of dismissal, of not taking my work seriously, of treating my ambitions like hobbies. Last Christmas was just the moment it all came into focus. The moment I realized that to them, success meant their kind of success, and anything else was a waste of time. I'm not responding to the texts. Not yet, anyway. Maybe not ever. I don't know what happens next. Maybe we'll reconcile eventually. Maybe this is permanent. But right now, in this moment, I feel lighter than I have in years. Like I finally said the thing I needed to say and drew the boundary I needed to draw. The money is real. The success is real. But more than that, the validation is real. I built something valuable without them. I proved them wrong in every way that matters. And now they know that their support can't be bought retroactively. You either believe in people when they're struggling, or you don't get to celebrate with them when they succeed. That's where I'm at now. No regrets about the dinner. No second thoughts about my decisions. Just clarity and peace and the satisfaction of knowing I stayed true to myself. They wanted a share of my success. Instead, they got a lesson in consequences. I think that's worth more.